I don't really know how to make this video because I'm working off a different format this time of choosing topics to talk about. Usually I just talk about my life and what's been going on and such. However, as much as I want to do that, I have a lot of thoughts every single day about literally everything, but my thoughts, they bubble onto the surface of my mind, and then just like a bubble, they pop once they reach the surface. So I thought perhaps making videos or TikToks regarding things I want to remember or ponder about might help me, well, actually fucking remember them. I have a little book filled with, things specifically that I wanted to talk about. And I think just for the sake of, I don't know, for the sake of something, I'm going to read them out. Jamie. Misogyny. AP abusers. Anxious preoccupied. An attachment style. Emotion and intellect. Disconnect. Carl. Teal Swan AP. Anxious preoccupied. Brilliant.org, where I'm going to learn to teach myself math again so I can actually become a neuroscientist maybe one day. Avoidance. Oh god. I'm surprised people care. Black sheep. Emotional shit. It's just work. Standards. Blair. Revenge. Good people step on. I just think like all lined down order. These thoughts are all, you could pick one of these in my mind and what you think is you're getting something shallow, but in fact there's like a mountain of information that I'm processing behind it. I'm sure for most people that is the same. However, with me, because things are so easily forgotten, I hoard my thoughts, which is probably a good thing. You know, I've always done it. I've always filled notebooks and journals filled with the things I'm thinking about, the ideas I've had, and simply completing one project that I have in mind can at times be infinitesimal. It's like literally, how would you even find the time? Ideas for books, ideas for paintings, theories I have regarding psychology. It's a beautiful thing to have a mind like this, but at times it just gives me a fucking headache. I remember, it reminds me of something I thought about one of the days I was in town, standing at the bank, and it suddenly occurred to me that I don't understand why people are so still. So there are certain things I don't understand about the human experience just from being autistic. And I assume it's from being autistic. I won't even go into what a dysfunctional family has done to warp my view of people, relationships. But from what I'm assuming just being autistic has done to me, there are certain things I don't understand about the human experience. And it suddenly occurred to me that most people I know live in the moment. They have plans for the future and goals for the future, as everyone does. But the simple act of doing what's called living in the moment is a foreign one to me. The idea that most people do not regret experiences that they've missed out on before those experiences have occurred, and not feeling a sense of overwhelm at how much they want to do in the tiniest amount of time that is a life confuses me deeply. And I've related this definitely to some childhood trauma. This inability to be still, which, funnily enough, my greatest desire seems ironically to embody this stillness. I think it's because I spent so much of my time depressed as a child and no ability to rest from that depression. I've been depressed today. I am finding it so hard to stay out of bed. That's what it's like for me when I'm depressed. Until I move out, however, I don't see any way of meeting the needs I have that would lead to this depression fading. Because I think that my depression can in fact fade, but I need certain needs to be met. For example, loneliness, hopefully a therapist of some kind, or feeling like I'm actually working towards a future, but not in a minuscule way, actually having money to spend, good food to eat, and a general will to live, and not being surrounded by toxicity. I feel like if those things went away, the only parts of my depression that would remain is my lingering effects of childhood trauma and the times when things that are traumatic will happen to me and I take a very long time to process from those events. And sometimes I can do so by falling into a depression, which is essentially me saying I can't process this, so I don't. Those are the only things I can realistically imagine would continue on into adult life, unless I was thrust into another set of undesirable circumstances I'd be forced to cope with, which is a potential, as it is in all parts of life. My head really hurts right now, and I don't know if it's psychological or actually just physical. When I say psychological, you can experience symptoms, painful symptoms of things like physical exhaustion just from being depressed, headaches just from being stressed. I think people forget that sometimes. So, I don't know if this is psychological because it seems to be coming on the more that I talk about these things, which honestly is probably an indication I need to take the equivalent of what I call an emotional shit. The reason I use such crude language is because I see self-care and processing emotions differently than I think people tend to. I think people tend to see processing emotions, processing thoughts regarding traumatic situations as a luxury, and it is in a moment of survival. But self-care is being marketed as a luxury, which in and of itself is a little bit fucked up. But not only is it marketed as a luxury, sorry, there's something else I was going to say, but I forgot it was. Not only is it being marketed as a luxury, I think people are confusing certain steps in processing thoughts and feelings from a confusing event and labeling one of these steps self-care. And self-care can refer to anything. It's a catch-all term. People can use dissociative methods like meditation to escape your feelings, or comfort eating, or anything really that they wish to. Just put a nice filter over it and call it self-care. I think what people are confusing for what they call self-care is but one of many steps, and basically, I don't have a word for it yet, but the conceptualization and visualization I'm attempting to use is basically the digestion process. The reason I use this is because when I was this particular image and particular terminology to call things like self-care, processing emotions, is because I was watching Rick and Morty once. I didn't really like the show, so I stopped watching it after a while. But I remember there was something that the therapist said that I found really kind of profound. Essentially, Rick got taken into a therapist's office is he being turned into a pickle, which was a metaphor, I think, for alcoholism. At least I heard somewhere that was a metaphor for alcoholism, being pickled, like being pickled in alcohol. I think pickles are pickled in alcohol, I assume. And he tried to justify not being there, not needing to be there, as many addicts or... Oh my fucking god, why is there so many people in my goddamn house? Or people who are prone to avoidancy of their problems will use. The therapist, however, responded with, it's just work. The same way that you get up every day, brush your teeth, go to work, earn a living, put your paycheck in. Therapy and psychology is just work. It's just work in order to enable you to be a functioning human being. And I liken it to basically taking a shit, because sometimes getting the emotions and expressing them feels like taking a shit. That's the amount of relief that you feel afterwards. And that's why I use that terminology for that. The digestion process of things. Obviously, if you had a traumatic childhood, or a childhood that didn't set you up with the notion that emotions are to be processed, then eventually you end up depressed and emotionally constipated, psychologically fucking constipated, you know? And yeah. Oh my god, my head fucking hurts, Jesus Christ. So, it also, taking an emotional shit sounds nicer than I had a panic attack and cried in the bathroom for 5 fucking hours. Well, for an hour. Because I thought I saw someone that looked like my ex, which is something that actually happened. Something else I wanted to talk about too. It's kind of a point of humor, but it's also incredibly sad. And I didn't make this channel so that I could be comedic about my life. I made this channel so that I have a place I could literally just fucking share what's going on. That's it. I don't have to play anything up, I don't have to cope with anything. I can just let shit out like I'm talking to myself, you know, because that's what I'm doing. A few days ago, I thought I saw someone that looked like my ex in town, and I felt like someone had put a muffled wet towel over my head. I thought that I was alright, even though I was stumbling around and was so out of it that I left my phone in the bathroom. And then eventually, while I was walking home, I just couldn't shake this paranoia that he was near me, even though he wasn't. And I knew that the person I'd seen wasn't him. They just had a style of dressing that looked like him. A way of walking. Hair that was similar. Skin tone that was similar. From the back, I thought it was him. Even double checked just in case. So, I had a panic attack in the middle of the street a little while later. Went behind a tree and cried, hoping that no one could see me. Until I could move on from that, and I felt so much fucking better. I think, anyways, as for the self-care thing, I think people are confusing decompressing after a traumatic event as processing their feelings about an event, because I find myself, I don't know if it's the case for all people, I find myself that just taking that time away from a traumatic event just so that I can be in a good enough place, feel better, to get to a good enough place that I can then start processing what happened. I feel like people are mistaking self-care for the simply feeling better part. The traumatic event happens and you go for a walk, or you do something to calm your nervous system, do something to remind yourself that regardless of what happens, you have your ritual, you have your routine, you have some sense of normalcy in your life, something to anchor you into the here and now. That's incredibly important. But I've never seen self-care marketed towards the, okay, but now it's time to figure your problems out. We're here, we're now, we're in the moment, now what? Where's the moving on? Where's the taking the emotional shit? Where's the anything? The actual meat of it. I don't understand why self-care is marketed this way, because obviously it's marketed in this way because nobody wants to buy a product that they think will make them feel worse. And it's considered, I think, the hard work of it, but it's work. And work isn't always fun. And I thought that the point of self-care was to romanticize things to the degree that you would actually find the work bearable. Using rose-tinted colors glasses is incredibly dangerous, but at times isn't putting on a pair of rose-tinted colored glasses the only way you can make it through something? Why is there no self-care marketed towards that? And it's a little misleading. And I honestly haven't gotten to the point yet today that I've processed nearly half of the thoughts that I've been having today. Just the experience of being in my brain, but also the things that have happened from the past few days. There was the thing with seeing that man that I thought was my ex in town, which was not fun. I did move on from it quickly though. I'm sorry. I can't recognize this way of talking. God, this is trippy. I'm actually watching myself in the camera as I talk. And it's like I cannot recognize these facial expressions or this voice or this way of talking out of my mouth. That is just, what the fuck, out of my... I'm sorry. I've seen this side of myself before, but it's strange sometimes. Dealing with having dissociative identities is strange sometimes. I assume dissociative identities. Fucking knows what my problems are. I want to sleep. I want to do nothing but sleep. I can't sleep. I need to stay awake. I need to fight this. I need to fight this to tomorrow. Study some more. Prepare for college. Prepare for life. starting to get compulsive about it. Also, so I can lie down and still feel like I'm doing something. I found ways around my depression exhaustion, which is literal physical exhaustion in my case, by finding as many ways to feel productive while not getting out of bed. So it looks like reading, doing college things, studying, painting, making videos, yoga I can do on the bed or on the floor. Sometimes I have days where I'm so exhausted that yoga is the only physically demanding thing I can do. And sometimes this exhaustion isn't just emotional. I don't react well to bad sleep. Bad sleep fucks me up beyond repair. I've seen other people who can deal with bad sleep. I'm not one of them. And if I don't... It's also partly the childhood thing I haven't talked about yet. When I was a kid, I drew this picture, and it became the foundation of what became the reasoning for my submissive fetish. I drew a picture when I was about 8 years old of me just lying on a bed, surrounded with what I assumed to be angelic-like figures, humans with wings, just taking care of me. And I felt so ashamed of that picture, because I was already with the mindset that I didn't deserve that. I didn't deserve it full stop, because only lazy people would want something like that. And I knew at that point that things, love, attention, rest, had to be earned. You know? That there was nothing in life that I wouldn't have to earn. Nothing that would come for free. And I hid that picture from myself because it made me feel so ashamed of having that desire to do nothing. And for no reason other than that I wanted to. My voice is changing again. I don't know if I'm gonna get into what happened with me and Carl. I feel like I need to share. I need to share because it'll make me feel better. It will. It always does. Why do I find it so hard to share what happened with Carl? That's why I made this channel, so that I would get used to sharing things. I'm not good at sharing things in day-to-day life. That was something I wanted to mention. It's something I realized just today. I had a sense. I had a notion of it before. And this is what I assumed to be part of the avoidant side of my disorganized spectrum. Disorganized detachment, stop saying spectrum. But sometimes I end up surprised to know that people care for me. But not just care for me, that my actions have an impact on others. And it shouldn't be surprising. And I know my actions have an impact on others. But it surprises me when I'm not around. My physical absence or my emotional absence, or me not being fully present for other people, actually harms them. I understand that logically because other people have done that to me. My entire life is a testament to the effects of neglect. But it's always a deeply personal thing that I'm surprised that other people want that love from me, and that me caring for them, it's nearly like I feel like me caring for people is entirely one-sided. That love that I feel is just an emotion that I have, and it only exists in the moment that we talk with each other. And whatever they feel for me only exists in the moment that we are together. But that the minute that I'm gone, it surprises me that my absence makes an impact. And sometimes it's so hard and intellectually infuriating. Makes me feel stupid. I don't like that. I don't like feeling stupid. I feel like if I keep talking, I'm going to age regress. I wanted to say that too. That I've noticed this happens. This is something I noticed, something I understood cognitively before, but now it's beginning to play out before my eyes. I didn't notice until last night how, regardless of the fact that I have so many coping tools, so much knowledge, so much understanding now of what I've been through, and patterns of behavior like gaslighting and manipulation, how with just a small trigger, my emotions will trigger me back into this helpless way of behaving in a situation. Like, nearly like I'm assuming it's a learned helplessness thing. That's what I'm assuming it is. That sometimes, I think that's why people stay in abusive relationships, why they justify the abuse. Something triggers them back into an experience that they've been through before. They respond with learned helplessness. And then in order to deflect from the pain of feeling helpless, they go into denial that it's even that bad, which they can do, and easily, because this is something they've been through before. Because in order to have learned helplessness, you need to have a backdrop of experiences that match the experience that you're responding with now with learned helplessness. You know, it's learned. You've been taught before. And I think that's why sometimes I age regress during moments of conflict or vulnerability. And it's a full-on regression. Sometimes it's mentally, I'm 5 years old again. No, I'll be talking like I'm 5. I'll be crying like I'm 5. I'll be responding like a toddler. And I've seen highly abusive people do this. That's another thing I wanted to say as well. Shit. Without the list of notes, I'm actually getting through this just by the associations in my brain. I wasn't expecting that. I think making that list helped, but surprised either way. I wouldn't need to look at that list. This feels good. It was just today because of my inability to show up for a woman who wants to have a relationship with me, because of my inability to show up for her due to my issues. I was reminded of the fact that I'm avoidant as well. And I scrolled some avoidant attachment subreddits. Yeah? Food.